He had everything. The car, the watch, the apartment on the 34th floor with the view everyone talked about. He was pulling in $380,000 a year, and he was sitting in that car every morning for 20 minutes before going into the office, because that was the only 20 minutes of the day where nobody needed anything from him. Not his boss, not his clients, not his phone. Just 20 minutes of sitting in a parking garage. That was his peace. And one morning he realized something that changed the way he thought about money forever. He was not wealthy. He was expensive. There is a difference, and most people chasing financial success have never stopped long enough to understand what that difference actually feels like. If nobody ever told you what wealth actually is beyond the numbers, smash that like button right now, because this might be the most important financial video you watched this year. I'm Alex. I study how money, behavior, and human psychology shape the lives people actually end up living, not just the bank balances they accumulate. And today, I want to talk about something most finance channels never touch. Not investment returns, not net worth milestones, not passive income numbers. The actual feeling of wealth, what it really is, why most people who reach the numbers still do not have it, and the specific things that create it that have almost nothing to do with how much money you make. Let's get into it. The real problem first. Here's something the financial industry does not want to spend too much time on. You can hit every number they told you to hit, the six-figure salary, the paid-off car, the maxed-out retirement account, and still wake up every morning feeling trapped. Not because you failed, because nobody told you what you were actually building toward. Most financial content gives you targets. Save this much, invest this percentage, hit this net worth by this age. But targets are not feelings. And the reason so many people reach financial milestones and feel nothing, or worse, feel more anxious than before, is because they were optimizing for the number without understanding what the number was supposed to buy them. A Federal Reserve study on financial well-being found that income above a certain point produces almost no additional day-to-day emotional well-being. The stress of managing more, protecting more, and performing more often cancels out the comfort that more money was supposed to provide. In plain terms, more money without the right structure around it does not feel like freedom. It feels like more responsibility with a nicer view. And this is where the conversation that nobody is having needs to start. Because real wealth, the kind that actually changes how your life feels, is made of 5 things that most finance plans never measure. Element 1, time autonomy. Let me ask you something most people have never actually calculated. How many hours of your average week do you spend doing exactly what you choose to do? Not what your job requires, not what someone else needs, not what your obligations demand, but what you genuinely choose to do. For most people, that number is shockingly small. Think about it like this. Imagine you own a beautiful house, 5 bedrooms, perfect neighborhood, everything you ever wanted, but every room has a different person in it telling you where to be and when. Your boss owns the living room from 9 to 6. Your commute owns the hallway twice a day. Your phone owns the kitchen. Your obligations own the evenings. You own the house, but you live in almost none of it. That's what most high-income lives actually feel like from the inside. Research from the Harvard Study of Adult Development, one of the longest-running studies on human happiness ever conducted, found that the single strongest predictor of life satisfaction was not income, not status, and not achievement. It was the feeling of control over how you spent your time. Not total freedom, just the feeling that your days were meaningfully yours. Let me make that real in dollar terms. If you earn $100,000 a year but have zero control over how you spend your time, you're richer than most of the world and less free than someone earning $60,000 with flexible hours and work they chose. The practical question wealth should be answering is not how much do I have, it's how much of my time do I actually own. And the financial goal shifts completely when you frame it that way. You're not building toward a number, you're buying back hours. buying back mornings, buying back the ability to say no to things that drain you, not because you're lazy, but because your time belongs to you. That's the real feeling of wealth, and most financial plans never measure it. Element 2, the absence of financial fear. Most people think wealth feels like having a lot, but the people who have actually crossed from financial stress into financial security will tell you something different. Wealth doesn't primarily feel like abundance. It feels like the absence of a specific kind of fear. Think about background noise. If you've lived near a highway your entire life, you stop consciously hearing the traffic, but on the rare night when it goes quiet, you notice the difference immediately. The silence feels different, lighter, more spacious. That's what eliminating financial fear feels like. Most people carry a low-grade financial anxiety so constantly that they've stopped noticing it's there, the background calculation running every time you spend money. Can I actually afford this? What if something breaks? What if I lose my job? What if the market drops? According to the American Psychological Association's annual Stress in America survey, money has been the #1 source of stress for Americans for over a decade consecutively. Not relationships, not health, money. And the insidious part is that this stress doesn't disappear automatically when income rises. It often increases, because now you have more to lose, more to protect, more complexity to manage. The real financial goal is not to have more money, it's to reach the point where the background calculation stops running, where you can book a flight without doing mental math, where a car repair is an inconvenience, not a crisis, where a bad market month is just a number on a screen, not a threat to how you live. Let me translate that into a specific financial target. Financial psychology research consistently shows that the anxiety reduction from savings is most significant when liquid emergency reserves reach 3 to 6 months of living expenses. On a $4,000 monthly expense base, that's $12,000 to $24,000 sitting in a stable, accessible account. Not invested, not tied up, just sitting there as a silence buffer between you and the financial fear that wakes most people up at 3 a.m. That specific number, that 3 to 6 month buffer, is worth more to your actual daily well-being than almost any investment return you could chase. Because returns build wealth on paper, the buffer changes how your nervous system operates every single day. And that's what wealthy actually feels like from the inside. Quick recap. Let's slow down for a second. Element 1, time autonomy. Real wealth is measured in how many of your hours are genuinely yours. Build towards owning your time before you optimize for income. Element 2, absence of financial fear. 3 to 6 months of liquid reserves, not for returns, for silence. The background calculation stopping is what wealthy actually feels like. Element 3, chosen problems. Every dollar of financial independence buys you more agency over which difficulties you engage with. Eliminate forced problems first, then choose your own. Element 4, work without escape. Build enough financial runway that your career choices are driven by meaning, not survival. 12 to 24 months of savings changes how Monday morning feels. And element 5, relationships without financial pressure. Money stress is the leading cause of relationship breakdown. Financial stability doesn't just change your account, it changes the emotional temperature of your home. Chosen problems. Here's something nobody ever says out loud about money. Wealthy people still have problems. In fact, some of the most financially successful people have extraordinarily complex, stressful, demanding lives. The difference is not the absence of problems, it's which problems they have. Think about 2 different kinds of headaches. The first type is a headache you didn't choose, a problem that arrived because of a constraint, a limitation, a lack of options. Your car breaks down and you can't afford to fix it, and you can't get to work, and you might lose your job. That headache was not a choice, it was forced on you by financial pressure. The second type is a headache you chose, a problem that came from pursuing something you decided to pursue. You're building something ambitious and it's harder than expected. You're navigating a complex investment and it requires more learning than anticipated. That headache arrived because you had the freedom to choose it. The feeling of wealth is not the absence of difficulty, it's the ability to choose which difficulties you engage with. According to research by psychologist Barry Schwartz on the paradox of choice, humans experience significantly higher well-being not from having no problems, but from having problems they feel agency over. The practical application for your financial life is this: every dollar you build towards genuine financial independence is a dollar buying you more choice over which problems are yours. And the shift from having problems forced on you to choosing your own problems, that shift in itself is one of the most profound quality of life improvements money can actually buy. I know what you're thinking right now. Alex, this sounds philosophical. I just want to pay my bills without stress. And that's exactly the point. Paying your bills without stress is the foundation, but understanding what comes
After that foundation, what you are actually building toward beyond bill payment is what keeps most people motivated through the decade of hard work that wealth building actually requires. The goal is chosen problems, and it starts with eliminating the forced ones first. Here's a question that will tell you more about your financial situation than any balance sheet. When Friday comes, what are you escaping from? For most people, the weekend is not rest. It is recovery from a week of doing things they did not choose for reasons they do not fully believe in. The 2-day window to feel like themselves before Monday arrives and the cycle starts again. Psychologists call this the Sunday scaries, and it is not just a mood, it is a signal. It is your life telling you that the majority of your waking hours are being spent in service of something that is not aligned with who you are or what you value. And here's the financial connection most people miss. The wealthiest people, not the highest earners, the genuinely wealthy, almost universally describe their work as something they would do even without the financial pressure. Not because they are delusional about the difficulty, but because the work itself is connected to something they find meaningful, something they chose, something that does not require an escape from. According to Gallup's State of the Global Workplace report, only 23% of workers worldwide feel genuinely engaged in their work. The remaining 77% are either disengaged or actively miserable. That means roughly 3 out of every 4 people are spending the majority of their waking life waiting for it to be over. And no amount of investment returns changes that experience. The financial goal that actually matters here is this: building enough financial runway, enough saved, invested, and compounding that you can afford to make choices about your work based on meaning rather than pure necessity. That does not mean quitting your job tomorrow. It means building toward the point where the job you do is one you would choose, not one you are stuck in because the alternative is financial collapse. On a practical level, financial research consistently shows that people with 12 to 24 months of living expenses saved report dramatically higher levels of career satisfaction and willingness to take meaningful professional risks. Not because they earn more, because they have options, and options change everything about how Monday morning feels. Element 5. Relationships without financial pressure. This last one is the most personal, and almost nobody talks about it directly. Money problems are the leading cause of divorce in the United States, according to multiple studies, including research published in the Journal of Family and Economic Issues. Not incompatibility, not growing apart, not communication, financial stress. Think about what financial pressure actually does to a relationship over time. Every disagreement about spending becomes charged with deeper anxiety. Every large purchase becomes a negotiation loaded with fear. Every month that ends with less than expected creates a low-grade resentment that accumulates quietly over years. And the thing most couples never realize is that they are not arguing about the money itself. They are arguing about the fear underneath it. The fear of not having enough. The fear of losing what they have. The fear of a future that feels less secure than they hoped. Genuine financial stability does not just change your bank account, it changes the emotional temperature of your most important relationships. When financial fear is removed from a relationship, not eliminated completely but significantly reduced, the conversations change. The arguments that were really about money anxiety become unnecessary. The space that stress was occupying gets filled with something better. This is not abstract. It is one of the most concrete and measurable quality of life improvements that financial security produces. And the practical target is the same one we've been building toward throughout this entire video. Enough saved, enough invested, enough runway that the financial fear stops being the background soundtrack of your daily life and your closest relationships. That silence, in your home, in your marriage, in your family, is what real wealth feels like. Let's lock this in. Element 1. Time autonomy. Real wealth is measured in how many of your hours are genuinely yours. Build toward owning your time before you optimize for income. Element 2, absence of financial fear. 3 to 6 months of liquid reserves, not for returns, for silence. The background calculation stopping is what real wealth actually feels like. Element 3, chosen problems. Every dollar of financial independence buys you more agency over which difficulties you engage with. Eliminate forced problems first, then choose your own. Element 4, work without escape. Build enough financial runway that your career choices are driven by meaning, not survival. 12 to 24 months of savings changes how Monday morning feels. Element 5, relationships without financial pressure. Money stress is the leading cause of relationship breakdown. Financial stability does not just change your account, it changes the emotional temperature of your home. The man in the parking garage had the number. He didn't have the feeling. And the feeling was never going to come from a bigger number. It was going to come from time he owned, fear that went quiet, problems he chose, work that did not require escape, and the people he loved most no longer carrying the weight of financial anxiety between them. That is what real wealth actually is. Not what you have, how your life actually feels from the inside. The difference between being stuck and being free is not income. It is behavior repeated quietly over time.